Almost perfect timing.
Well, I just forgot my glasses. I can't see without them. I turned 50, you know.
You turned 50?
A long time ago.
Oh, that's so sad.
It just happens overnight. You just wait. The day you turn 50, you have to. That's the party I'm going to have.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's our big. That's going to be our big.
Because there was nothing down on
He's 58, so he's like, but that's the one he's like, don't go in 60. Nothing. He was an answer for that now. Study abroad.
We haven't heard of
Glasses.
Yeah. No, okay. Did you have surgery?
You get surgery? Contacts.
I've never wore glasses. Sometimes I do just when I want to look smart.
Just when you want to look smart. I just wear them when I want to see.
Hi, Sandra. I know.
This is my little girl, Sandra.
Ready.
Okay. I'm going to call the City Council meeting of June the 4th, 2013 to order. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Schotmeyer,
Here.
Adams,
Here.
Long,
Here.
Gray,
Here.
Marsh, Kenyon,
Here.
Petty, Mayor Jordan.
Here. Would you join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I think I can do that.
Okay, on the first order of business tonight, under the City Council meeting presentations, reports, and discussion items, we have the quarterly financial report by Paul Becker.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll give a first quarter's report, financial report, which I give at the end of the quarter. It's for this evening, but I'm going to give you a little detail on that because I've also had the April results. So as we look at the general fund, expenditures are about in line which were our expectations. City sales tax is up as of the end of the first quarter, 5% up for the city sales tax, but since we backed off a bit in April, currently it's about 4.5% up. County sales tax, which is the city portion of that tax collected by the county, is up also another 4.5%. If we look at this and extend it forward, that'll be about $500,000 to $550,000 in excess revenue this year, and that's good news because if you remember, we came forward and asked the council to approve salary increases, which will total between $800,000 and $1 million this year. So we're rapidly on the way to help paying for that at this point in time. Building permits are down a bit, and that's to be expected because a lot of the permitting for the school was going on during the first quarter last year. It's down about 10% so far, which, although significant, isn't going to have a major impact on us. So as far as the general fund is concerned, right now we're doing a little better than expected, and we'll continue to monitor that. As far as sales tax capital, again, that's funded by the city sales tax. 40% of city sales tax, and that's up to date about $55,000 as of the end of April. So I expect that to be up about $165,000, $170,000 by the end of the year, and again, we'll have to monitor that. That again is good news because if you remember, I asked you to authorize an additional $360,000 for Rogers Drive, which needed repair. So that fund is doing pretty well now, even though we have had to dip into the reserves a bit, but we did dip in the reserves for an emergency, and that's what they're for. As far as the parking fund is pretty level to what we expected. At the beginning of the year, we may be up about $50,000 during the current year. That's good news because we have to pay the bonds for the new parking deck. When we look at the HMR funds, they're up a bit. They're up about 2% more than more than expected for the year. So that's good news for the A&P Commission. Also good news for the Parks Development Fund, which of course we use for the maintenance of our parks program. Impact fees are down a bit, and that's because development is down. But impact fees must be used on expansion capital for the future, and at this point in time, we don't have anything identified right at this point in time, and funds are being accumulated there for future use. Again, that has to be tied to development, so that's a very, very special fund, and the use of those has to be specially approved. As far as the solid waste fund is concerned, we're up about 1% so far this year, so it's slightly up compared to normal. Water and sewer we look at, and water is up about 0.4%. The water revenues are up. Now, that's a little behind where it should be, and of course that's due to the extremely wet conditions we've had. Even though the real drought last year didn't kick in until later in the summer, we're using less water at this point in time than we did last year. The sewer portion is up about 2%, which is where it should be because we did have a 2% inflationary increase factored into the rates. So everything as of now is doing pretty well what we had expected, and again the general fund is up a bit, about 2% in sales tax over what we had anticipated and factored into the budget. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have
What questions do we have for Paul on this one? Everybody good? Okay. Thank you, Paul. All right. On the agenda additions, we are being asked to pull item 12, bid number 13-30, Benchmark Construction of Northwest Arkansas Incorporated. I would ask the council,
This needs to be removed, I think, and amended, and I think.
You want me to read the
Angie,
whole thing before we remove it, or?
No, I think just the
Title.
bid number, you've done that.
Okay. Yes.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. As we reported at the agenda session, we had a very good bid for this project. As it turns out, it was a little too good. And so the contractor who was the low bidder was asked to withdraw his bid. He missed a $15,000 item in the bid. So the recommendation today is go to the second bidder, that is LJB Construction. Their bid was $54,473. As we noted before, we're trying to get this done during the summertime, so it's a time-sensitive item. Also, I'm sure there are questions about rebidding. We could do that, but many times when you rebid, you do the math, you think you can get a lower bid, but it doesn't always work out that way. The bidders that participated in the past bid may not show back up again. You could reduce the competition. There are a lot of different things that could happen, so it's really, you're kind of starting over, so there really is no guarantee. This is a good bid, an acceptable bid. They are a good contractor that's done work for the city before, so we recommend LJB Construction.
All right. Do we have anything to present to the council of who it is and how it needs to be
Yeah,
read?
the city clerk, I believe, sent out email to all the council members the ordinance amendment, and so we would need a motion to amend to the resolution that was submitted to you all through the city clerk.
Okay.
I would make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion on it? Okay. Sandra, I suppose we call the roll.
Yeah, this is to amend the resolution.
Yeah.
Tennant,
Yes.
Shopmire,
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Long.
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Marsh,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Petty.
Yes.
Okay.
And now we need a motion to actually approve that resolution as amended.
So moved. Second.
Motion and second to approve the resolution as amended. Any discussion on it? Any public comment on it? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council. All right. We have a motion and second. All right. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Tennant,
Yes.
Shopmire,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Marsh,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Petty.
Yes.
Okay, now on to the consent. Thank you all very much. Number one, RFP number 13-06, Challenger Teamwear. a resolution awarding RFP number 13-06 and authorizing a contract with Challenger Teamwear in the amount of $12.15 plus tax each for youth soccer uniforms for the fall 2013 and spring 2014 seasons. Number 2, Gallagher Benefits Services, a resolution approving the annual renewal contract in the amount of $57,600 with Gallagher Benefits Services for the provision of the city employee benefits broker services. Number 3, bid number 13-19. Suncoast Infrastructure Incorporated, a resolution awarding bid number 13-19 and approving a contract with Suncoast Infrastructure Incorporated in the amount of $162,495 to construct Elkins outfall gravity sewer improvements and approving a $20,000 project contingency. Number 4, Goodman and Goodman Incorporated change order number 2. A resolution approving change order number 2 to the construction contract with Goodman and Goodman Incorporated for water and sewer relocations on North Garland Avenue in the amount of $111,165.35 and approving a budget adjustment. Number 5, 2013 Curbside Value Partnership. Resolution approving application for a 2013 Curbside Value Partnership Education Recycling Marketing Grant valued at $25,000. Number 6, Keep America Beautiful Cigarette Litter Prevention Program Grant. Resolution authorizing acceptance of a Keep America Beautiful Cigarette Litter Prevention Program grant in the amount of $1,000 and approving a budget adjustment. Number 7, 2012 ADEQ Recycling Grant. Resolution authorizing acceptance of a 2012 Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality Recycling Grant in the amount of $25,000 for the purchase of recycling containers for the apartment recycling program and approving a budget adjustment. Number 8, concrete sculpture donation. A resolution authorizing acceptance of a concrete sculpture donation from Hank Kaminsky for placement along Skull Creek Trail or Frisco Trail. Number 9, EPA Region 6 Wetland Program Development Grant. A resolution approving an application for an EPA Region 6 Wetland Program Development Grant in the amount up to $132,500 for an assessment of city streams. Number 10, Walmart Stores Incorporated. A resolution authorizing acceptance of the donation of an area ray air detection instrument in the approximate value of $50,000 from Walmart Stores Incorporated for use by the fire department. And number 11, amend resolution number 200-12, Animal Service Advisory Board. A resolution to amend resolution number 200-12 to add a city council member to the Animal Service Advisory Board. And so,
Move we approve the consent agenda as read.
Second.
we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as read. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Tippit,
Yes.
Shopmire,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Ray,
Yes.
Marsh,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Hetty.
Yes.
Okay, under unfinished business, amend 114.02 Farmers Market. An ordinance to amend 114.02 Farmers Market to transfer current free use of the south parking spaces on Mountain Street to the control of the Rural Mountain Producers Exchange Board, close Mountain Street to traffic to permit sound amplification during Farmers Market and to make other changes. Okay. What do we have?
Say one thing.
Yes.
Well, I want to start by thanking the council and citizens for their patience in getting through this. I feel like we've done a good job of discussing all of the nuances of the ordinance, and I think we've come to as strong a consensus as we can, as Alderman Long has said the last few meetings. I visited yesterday again with Liz Fulton, the owner of Town and Country, and she's ready still to try this out. The timing is just about perfect because July 6th would be the first Saturday where this ordinance would be in effect if we pass this tonight, which is typically a bigger day at the market anyway, where they file an event permit to close the streets. And in addition, this July 4th celebration at the market is a celebration also their 40th anniversary in operation. So it's going to be a big day anyway. Talked with the market management this morning, and if we get this passed, they're ready to go.
Okay. What other comments do we have on it? Okay. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to address us on this?
Yeah, my name's Chuck Rutherford. I'm president of the RMP Board of Directors and the Fayetteville Farmers Markets. I've got 3 things here that I think explains why we're asking for what we're asking for. The first thing is the mission statement of the RMPE. The mission of the RMPE is to support the development of a healthy economy for small-scale agriculture in Northwest Arkansas, primarily by establishing farmers markets for the direct sale of local agricultural products and handcrafted items. I have a short letter here that I received last November, which completed our 1-year trial of setting up on Mountain Street the way we were asking for in this request. It says, "Dear Chuck, thank you and the Fayetteville's Farmers Market for turning the booths around to face the street. I used to live in the downtown Fayetteville area, so getting to the Saturday market early before the crowd was easy. However, since we moved out of town, I come into town for the market later in the morning. By the time I arrived, the market was packed, which is good, but navigating the crowded sidewalks prevented me from getting to the vendors. After a few Saturdays of encountering the problem of not being able to get to the vendors, I gave up on coming to Saturday's market. However, the market has won me back by changing the setup so that there is plenty of room to get around the square in the street and actually get to the vendors. Thank you." And a couple weeks ago, the newspaper article that talked about the Pryor Center moving to the East Square building, Dale Carlton, principal broker for the company, said he was happy the university extended his lease for another year. And expanding farmers market and successful events like First Thursday and the Block Street Party also make the square a good place to be, Carlton said. I would also like to add, this last Saturday, the vendor that was next to me did not come. So the Historical Society was put in that place, and it worked very well. We had a good relationship together, customers back and forth to them and the other booths around. So it fit very well to be part of the farmers market with a nonprofit group being right in with the farmers market vendors. Thank you.
All right. Does anybody have any questions for Chuck on this? Okay. Anyone else from the public like to address us on this? Okay, gonna bring it back to the council. Okay, Justin.
I know that there's a lot to this when we talk about the businesses and things like that, and we could probably debate the effect on the businesses for positive or negative. I personally think it'll be a positive effect on the businesses around, because I think the farmers market will continue to grow, and I think that will help everyone involved. One of my main things about this has always been about safety, and I guess since I've had children, I've become a bit of a worrier, and every time I'm at the farmers market, I'm always very careful to not let my children get away from me, dart in between the cars that are parked, because I fear that a car is gonna hit somebody at some point. And in 2003, an elderly man drove his car through a crowded farmers market and killed 9 people, and I remember that. And I'm not doing this out of fear, I don't live in fear, but I do see kids out there every Saturday that are not real close to their parents. And the parents are talking or whatever, and the kids could get away from them easily. And I think closing any of the streets, making it any more safe, take away the effect of the farmers market as far as more vendors and everything, which I think is all positive. I think we have an obligation to make it as safe as possible, and I think that this does that. So for me, I understand the business side of it, but the safety side of it means as much or more to me than anything. So I think it's good, and I'll support it for many reasons, including those.
Okay. Alan.
I wanted to talk just for a second about a part of the ordinance that hasn't been talked about much, and I've been thinking about it since we kind of started the discussion, and it's on the sections of dogs on the square during the market, section 5, part H. It says each person with a leashed dog shall have on their person a plastic bag which must be used immediately by the dog's handler or owner to remove any and all feces from their dog. The available plastic bag must immediately be shown to any animal control officer or police officer when requested. That section, to me, I've been contacted by several constituents about that, and some of them think that it may be too stringent since we already have animal waste containers on the square. And some suggested that possibly we could change it to say something like each person shall immediately replace or shall immediately clean up after their animal using the waste bags provided at the square. That to me just sounds a little bit more palatable, I guess. And it's something, like I said, that I've been thinking about for a while, so I just thought it's a discussion we could have. And I would like to offer that as an amendment.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second to, amendment would basically say that each person will clean up immediately after their dog.
Or cat.
Or cat, I'm sorry.
Animal.
Right now, it only talks about dogs. You want to add cats?
Oh, okay,
Well,
I guess if it just talks about dogs, then let's leave it there.
All right. What discussion do we have on the amendment? Sarah?
I would support that because having fostered a lot of dogs, you go out and you take the dog on a walk, they do their business, you clean it up with the plastic bag you have and you throw that away and then you don't have one again. So I think that this, enables you to then access the ones that are on the square should you need that second.
Okay, so after their dog's business,
Yes.
I kind of like that. I didn't really know how to phrase that. But I was going to say after their dog's movement. But Adela.
I would like some clarification on the exhibition spaces. As you all know, this is one thing I've been very concerned about, and I've had some calls this week about what does this exactly mean, a minimum of 28 feet on either side of all 3 closed streets. Actually, I think that the word that was very important that we wanted in there was that the exhibition, if we want to call it that, spaces be integrated with the vendors. And I don't see that word integrated anyplace, and I would like to see it there.
Okay, Della, hang on just a minute. Do we do that now, or do we want to stay with the amendment that we already have?
It'd probably be easier to stick with one section and talk about that.
Then you'll ask for another amendment on the...
Okay.
Does that sound good?
That's fine.
Okay.
Sure.
All right.
We weren't finished with the dogs, huh?
Well, I was going to take public comment and then bring it back to you all, and then we'll discuss and vote on that amendment, and then, okay? Mm-hmm. Is there any other discussion on the amendment on the council? Okay. What public comment do we have on the amendment on the dog cleanup?
I would just like some clarification on the wording of that amendment. I mean, what are we changing, and what is the...
Here's what I've got to try to capture the intent, I think. On the second sentence, it would read, each person with a leash dog shall immediately clean up and remove any and all feces from their dog.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank you.
I think that clarifies it rather well. Does anyone have any other comments, questions? Okay, I'll bring it back to the council. All right, any other discussion on the amendment? Okay. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Tennant.
Yes.
Schottenmeier.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Long.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Marsh.
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Petty.
Yes.
Okay. Now, Dell.
Okay, this is in the area that's talking about exhibition spaces. So I'm not sure who needs to clarify that. I would just like to see the word integrated added. So I guess maybe I'm making a motion that we amend this to make sure that the exhibitors are integrated. Is it in there? Have I overlooked it?
No, you could, if you wanted to, you could, instead of where it says now, where it says shall be set aside and managed, you could say set aside, integrated, and managed by the Rural Mountain Producers Exchange to indicate that they should be filled in different areas along the street.
Okay,
I would second that amendment.
okay. Matthew, you had a comment to make?
Sure, I'll support it if it makes everyone feel better about it. I don't think it really changes the intent, which was the reason, to address that concern, the way I wrote the ordinance was such that the exhibition spaces for politicians, other government groups, nonprofits, etc., would have to be distributed to every side of the square. And so I think it already accomplishes that, and I don't think that changes much, but for peace of mind, I'll definitely support that.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, the amendment basically says you want to put the word, Kim, what was that?
Yes, under subsection 3, exhibition spaces, the first sentence would now read, a minimum of 28 feet on either side of all 3 closed streets shall be set aside, integrated, and managed by the Rural Mountain Producers Exchange Management as exhibition space for nonprofit charitable corporations and free speech entities, including issue campaigns and candidates.
Okay, everybody got that?
You just add one word, integrated.
Right. Any discussion on that? Does anyone have any public comment on that? Okay, bring it back to the council. Any other discussion on the amendment to add the word integrate? Correct?
That's correct.
All right. Any other discussion on that? All right, Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Tennant,
Yes.
Shopmire.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Long.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Marsh.
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Petty.
Yes.
Okay, anything else?
Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
There is some question about the food vendors and whether or not they will be registered with A&P and pay tax like other food vendor trucks. And that have we discussed that?
No, but Alderman Petty says he has an answer.
That question was raised at one of the ordinance review committee meetings, and I think we discussed it in one of the council meetings too. Basically, every vendor that is there that sells prepared food has to remit HMR taxes. If they're selling, if a food truck is there, they have to sell HMR taxes just like they would if they were selling food anywhere else in town. In addition, all the other vendors that aren't selling produce have to remit regular sales taxes. It's only the farmers selling produce that have the state exemption, which is a more than a century old exemption. So everyone else has to pay taxes just like a regular group.
So in other words, the food trucks have to pay taxes, correct? Yeah.
Okay, does that need to be in the ordinance?
That's a matter of state law, and so
Okay.
it's already in there. In fact, we couldn't change the state law, so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And if I remember correctly, we are going to leave Center Street open?
Yes.
We did get an emergency vehicle down through there?
Center Street is not to be closed.
Okay, good.
Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to address this. You know, we keep talking about closing streets, but in a way, we're not closing streets. We're opening them by keeping the cars out. We're opening them to the public and to commerce. And so, in effect, we're giving these streets that were previously the domain of cars back to our community. But the real reason that I'm supporting this is because I see this as a green jobs plan. Every new market stall that we create is a green job ready to be filled. And if there's one thing that the people have spoken about in the last election is that they want action on jobs and the economy. And this is a great way for us to grow our local sustainable economy, create green jobs, and improve access to healthy foods. So I hope that everyone will support this.
Okay. What other comments do we have? Adele.
Mayor, this has been a very, very difficult decision for me. In the 6.5 years of being on the council, this has probably required I've had more brain time and more concern and more contacts with constituents than any other single issue. And I vacillated in my support, But as I stated the last time we met, I feel that this ordinance should go back to Ordinance Review Committee because we are continuing to get very strong support from citizens regarding this action that we're about to take. I believe it is incumbent on us as aldermen to find the most palatable solution to our problems. There are issues. We've talked about the food trucks, but that had not been addressed, is not in the ordinance, but we've taken care of that. But I believe we as aldermen should not leave a single stone unturned in thinking about how to deal with this very important issue for our city. I believe that's what we as aldermen are elected to do, to solve problems in a way that is the most palatable to all the citizens of the city. I believe that we are to do what we conclude is the best for our city, not just what we've seen in other places or what we think might be the best for our city. I believe we must listen to the patrons of the market. I believe we must listen especially to our brick and mortar tax-paying citizens on the square, as well as the vendors. There are great options that have not been addressed. We could be opening West Mountain Street, for instance, where no businesses at all would be affected. That would be a great option and would open up many spots for vendors when they are needed. The Mountain Street safety problem is one of our own making. Farmers Market used without authority 6 parking places in front of Tiny Tim's and put various groups and members in those 6 parking places. They then turned the vendors to face the town center, leaving the sidewalk open and completely unused, which it is to this day, completely unused, the sidewalk next to the old post office. So then it was unsafe to have the street open. But as I see it, that's a problem of our own making. We don't have to have Mountain Street configured the way it is configured. Festival on Saturday is what we're creating, and a lot of folks want that, and that's great. That would be, if that's acceptable to what a lot of folks in Fayetteville want. We have a lot of exciting festivals. We have First Thursday and Spring Fest, and then we just heard about 4th of July Festival and 40th Anniversary Festival. But this plan would tend to make every Saturday a festival Saturday, as long as the market is open, which, you know, we're a city of diversity, but I think we have to remember why we are the #1 farmers market in the nation. It's not because it's like any other farmers market. It is a sense of place. It is a sense of community. When we come to the farmers market on Saturday and we know that we're going to see certain people, you know, it's a special, special time. When we have out-of-town visitors, we always bring them to the square. I'm not at all sure that many of our out-of-town visitors of all ages would want to come to a festival every Saturday. It's a whole different venue, a whole different attitude from what we've always had at our farmers market. It's a sense of place and community. I don't know if you've ever experienced it. I certainly have. Gone to a restaurant that refurbished itself and got all fancied up. It was nothing like the old one, and I didn't enjoy it. because that sense of place and security was not there. So I will not be voting in favor of this ordinance today because I feel like what we have as the #1 farmers market in the nation is truly unique. Thank you.
Okay. What other comments do we have? No other comments? Okay. If there's nothing else, Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Tennant,
Yes.
Shopmire.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Gray,
No.
Marsh,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Petty.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you all very much. All right. Number 2, under unfinished business. Amend chapters 151, 161, 164, and 172. An ordinance to amend chapters 151, 161, 164, and 172 of the Unified Development Code to modify certain standards within urban zoning districts to clarify and add flexibility to some of these requirements, to amend building height references, and to add a maximum building height to the C1 zoning district, and to provide supplement design standards for auto-oriented facilities within these districts. I will entertain a motion to go to the second reading.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to go to the second reading. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Tennant,
Yes.
Shopmire,
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Marsh.
I'm sorry, I thought we were already, this was the second reading.
No, it said it was left on the first reading.
Yeah.
Entertain a
First
motion to go to
reading.
the second reading.
Okay, all right, yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Petty.
Yes.
An ordinance to amend chapters 151, 161, 164, and 172 of the Unified Development Code to modify certain standards within urban zoning districts, to clarify and add flexibility to some of these requirements, to amend building height references and add a maximum building height to the C1 zoning district, and to provide supplemental design standards for automobile-oriented facilities within these districts.
Okay, what questions do we have? Comments? Staff? Sorry. Anything different? I'm sorry.
As you all know, I presented this at the last meeting. The one question we tried to follow up a little more on, do some research, was related to building height and how we, the current proposal in our chapter 161 is to remove references to stories. We have those only in a few zoning districts, primarily in downtown and some of our form-based codes. The reason for that was simply to provide, in theory, more clarity for designers and for staff in administrating our building height regulations. Stories can certainly vary in height, even in the same building, they can vary in height. And so the intent behind that was to really allow the flexibility of allowing anyone to do whatever they really wanted to do within the building codes, obviously, of story height, but for the citizen or adjacent property owner to understand what that maximum height would be. We've also provided some step-back transition requirements as part of this discussion, but the primary reason for the story, removing the story, was to simply clarify that. The question at the last meeting, and I'll just paraphrase, was essentially, are there other ways to look at potentially going back to stories as opposed to looking at the numerical height limit? And so we've been doing some research. We looked at around 11 cities, and primarily in their downtown areas. I will say what we've found is most cities, even if they do refer to stories, still have a numerical height limit. And so I think it's in some form or fashion, it's important to leave at least a maximum numerical value in there that we can physically measure on the ground or through architectural drawings. But there may be a way to also include stories if that's something that the council desires to keep in. And Alderwoman Marsh had some ideas about that as well. And so we're certainly not at all opposed to leaving this here and researching that more, or bringing it back to, as a separate project altogether to look at building heights. The issue around building heights, and particularly if you remember about 5-6 years ago in our downtown, was a very hotly debated item. So I don't really want to just make some pretty drastic changes without really fully vetting this through our probably commission. We actually had a subcommittee set up just to look at that particular issue back in around 2006 or 7. So if there are major changes, I would like to probably do that as a separate project as we discussed, but I'm open to ideas on how you'd like to proceed. I will say that there are a lot of changes in the form-based codes that we would like to move forward, whether that's tonight or in 2 weeks. I don't think that's drastically important. But I'd rather not, I guess from staff's preference, we would rather not hold up this whole code amendment just to look at height limits themselves. And so that's really the discussion I've had with Alderwoman Marsh.
My primary concern with height limits is, having worked in the architectural profession, when you impose a height limit as opposed to a story limit, you're economically incentivizing people to build what we call pancake buildings, which are low-story buildings, which are 8-foot tall spaces, because it's more profitable for them to cram as much in as we allow. But I absolutely respect the need to also establish a firm height limit. So I would really like to leave this at the second reading and work with Jeremy and his team to propose an amendment to just remove very targeted pieces of this ordinance to allow for further study, but then also to allow the rest of it to proceed forward for a vote next time.
Okay. What's the rest of the council think? Holding it on the second reading.
Was that a motion to take? No,
Well,
no table needs.
Just to leave it.
Just to leave it on the second reading.
Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Everybody good? Okay. So we'll just table it here.
Just leave it here.
All right. Okay. All right. Under new business then. Number 1, RZN 13-4360, 693 West North Street, Randall. An ordinance to rezone that property described in rezoning petition RZN 13-4360 for approximately 2.44 acres located at 693 West North Street from I-1 Heavy Commercial and Light Industrial to CS Community Services. Kit?
Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas, Section 1, that the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas hereby changes the zone classification of the following described property from heavy commercial and light industrial to community services, as shown in Exhibits A and B attached hereto and made a part hereof. In Section 2, that the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas hereby amends the official zoning map of the City of Fayetteville to reflect the zoning change provided in Section 1.
Chairman.
This is 2.4 acres, currently zoned I-1 heavy commercial light industrial. It's just east of the North Street Trail crossing and also where the new recycling drop-off facility is being constructed currently. The proposal is to rezone these two properties to CS, which is our Community Services District. The property was built many, many years ago as formerly known as the Raincoat Lumber Yard. It was operated as part of the railroad site there. Since the time of that closing, though, the neighborhood surrounding the site has seen concentrated development for commercial, office, and multifamily uses. In City Plan 2030, when we looked at this particular site redevelopment potential, we identified this as city neighborhood area as well as a surrounding area. These areas are generally more densely developed than just standard residential neighborhood areas, and they also provide a varying mix of non-residential and residential uses. We feel that the community services zone is appropriate for this property. It will serve to limit the uses that are currently allowed in the I-1 district, which would not be necessarily compatible with some of the surrounding uses, and would limit the adverse impacts surrounding industrial development occurring in this area. It is a small site, so we don't believe this would be compatible for a economic development opportunity for industrial development. It's simply not suitable for that type of use at this point in time. Instead, staff is recommending approval of this rezoning request. The Planning Commission agreed with that recommendation with a vote of 8-0.
Quick question. Yes, Matthew.
I had a couple questions. First, I was just wondering where the request came from. Was this generated by staff or by someone else?
This was from the property owner. I think they have some potential leads on possibly redeveloping the site.
Okay. Well, I'm for it, but I wanted to ask a broader question. In some of the other communities with old industrial centers, a really, I guess, some of the activity we're seeing in other communities where they have these industrial centers is industrial buildings being repurposed, being adapted into new facilities where the insides are gutted and refurbished and turned into artist studios, live work units for freelancers. What you see in these places is you see non-polluting industrial uses like carpentry, furniture building, big art production, and those sorts of things going side by side with residential uses. Our codes don't currently allow that, any of them from what I can tell. And I just want to bring this point up now because I think it's something we need to look at in the future. I know that there's interest in properties like this and in other properties north of here where people are looking to do things like that. And if we're going to make neighborhoods like that, which are so popular in other communities, legal in Fayetteville, we're going to need to change the code.
Okay. Any other comments on that? All right. Any public comment on this?
My name is Scott Blacksher. I'm with Blue & Associates. I'm here to represent the Randall family in this project. And if y'all do have any specific questions for them, I'll be more than happy to answer all of them for you.
Do we have any questions for the applicant on this? Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Come on up, Aubrey. How are you this evening?
Just fine. Aubrey Shepherd. This is adjacent to Skull Creek, and it should be whatever's used, it's used for. I hope we'll take that into consideration. The existing building that's the closest to the stream already would be illegal to be built at this time under our stream protection ordinance, I believe. So that would be a consideration that should be taken into account in the future. The zoning specifically, I'm not sure which zoning would protect the stream the most. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council. What y'all want to do?
Move we go to the second reading.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to go to the second reading. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Tennant,
Yes.
Saltmark,
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Marsh,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Petty.
Yes.
An ordinance rezoning that property described in rezoning petition RZN 13-4360 for approximately 2.5 acres located at 693 West North Street from heavy commercial, light industrial to community services.
I move we go to the
Can I
third
ask
and
a
final.
question?
You
Excuse
sure.
me.
Could I ask Jeremy about what Aubrey just said about building that close to the stream? Is that, I'm looking at Google Maps, and is it, it's not stream side protection, we're not that close.
It's likely the west side of that property would be
Is
impacted
it?
by the stream side protection zone. However, I actually think the community services district would help with redevelopment of this property because it essentially pushes buildings closer to the street as opposed to the current zoning district, which would require them to be set back further. And if you look at the property, it gets more narrow as you go back.
Yes.
And so I think this would actually help that situation to allow for more buildable area closer to the front of the property as opposed to back closer to the creek and on the west side.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Aubrey, for raising that to us. Appreciate that.
That's a good point. Anybody else?
Thank you, Adele. Sorry.
I move we go to third and final reading.
We have a motion and a second to go to the third and final reading. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Tennant,
You're having the most trouble with my name. How should I take that?
it's because it's the first name I
I
speak.
see. I was starting to feel bad.
No.
Yes.
Don't feel bad.
Saltmark.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Marsh,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Petty.
Yes.
An ordinance rezoning that property described in rezoning petition RZN 13-4360 for approximately 2.5 acres located at 693 West North Street from heavy commercial, light industrial to community services.
What final comments do we have in the council on this? Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Tennant,
Yes.
Saltmark,
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Marsh,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Petty.
Yes.
Okay, number 2, RZN 13-4363, 2269 North Hinbest Road, Nouns. An ordinance rezoning the properties described in rezoning petition RZN 13-4363 for approximately 5.77 acres located at 2269 North Hinbest Road from RA residential agricultural, RSF 4 residential single family 4 units per acre, and RMF 24 residential multifamily units per acre to CS Community Services and C2 Thoroughfare Commercial. Kit?
Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas, Section 1, that the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas hereby changes the zone classification of the following described properties from residential agricultural, residential single family, 4 units per acre, and residential multifamily, 24 units per acre, to community services and thoroughfare commercial as shown on exhibits A and B attached here to and made a part hereof. Section 2, that the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas hereby amends the official zoning map of the City of Fayetteville to reflect zoning changes provided in Section 1 above.
Chairman.
This is approximately almost 6 acres bounded by Mount Comfort Road, Shiloh Drive, and Hinbest Drive. You may remember when we did the improvements to Mount Comfort in this intersection, the city constructed a new location of Shiloh Drive and renamed the old Shiloh as Hinbest. As part of this, we purchased property from this property owner, and this is the remaining portion on the south and east sides of that new road alignment. That property has subsequently developed for the Adventure Subaru dealership, which moved there from College Avenue, and that was completed in early 2012, I believe. The Planning Commission also approved as part of their large-scale development, the ability for the Adventure Subaru dealership to use property west of their actual zoning line, which is allowed by our codes as part of their automobile dealership storage. They've since seen very much success in this market at this location and are needing to expand what their operations currently allow. So that's one of the reasons for this rezoning request, and really the primary reason for the rezoning to C2, which is, you'll see on page 4 of 22, is the portion directly adjacent, the portion of property about 1.5 acres, part of which again is already being utilized for the dealership. Simply to bring all that into the C2 district to allow for the expansion to that dealership. The bulk of the property, however, is being requested to be rezoned from a number of different zoning districts to CS, Community Services, as was mentioned in the previous example. On our future land use plan, this area is shown also as a city neighborhood area, so it also supports a wide spectrum of uses and encourages different densities and non-residential uses. This particular property is unique, as I mentioned at the agenda session, in the fact that it's adjacent to I-540 and Shiloh, but also adjacent to established residential neighborhoods not very far away. We really feel that this particular site has a great potential to provide neighborhood services that Mount Comfort is woefully lacking, particularly the residential neighborhoods there, such as goods and services, particularly. This area is really not connected except for Rupel Road to the rest of Fayetteville and Mount Comfort and Porter Road, and so the trail connection I think is going to be a big improvement to this area, but also uses and zoning such as this that would allow for goods and services to be located within this area we feel is important to completing portions of those neighborhoods. Staff was supportive of this request. The Community Services District, as you know, encourages their traditional town form and is a form-based code as well. And that really is part and parcel of Goal 3 of our city plan 2030 to develop new properties with our traditional town form in mind. There was no public comment on this zoning back at the Planning Commission, and they voted 8-0 in favor of the request, and staff is also recommending approval of this request.
What questions do we have?
I would just add to that I haven't heard anything negative from Ward 4 residents, and I've heard a lot of positive, and I've walked on the property, and I know the applicants are here and they may want to speak, but I certainly, as a Ward 4 representative, am supportive and happy to see this, and would be happy to hear them speak too, since they came all the way up here.
All right. Well, gentlemen, come on up.
My name is David Nelms. I represent our family and the Adventure Subaru, and as it was stated by Jeremy, we have had unexpected or beyond our imagination success with the Subaru dealership, and the facilities that we have out there have allowed us to take this dealership and create something that we never imagined. In keeping with the neighborhood, though, we're continuing to try to limit our impact on the neighborhoods by using LED lighting that limits the amount of bleed that goes out into the neighborhood. We've continued to develop this property in that manner as long as we own it, and feel that we really need to free up our old facility down on College, move the cars off of it, get it out here where we have our facility, and it'll make our operation much easier to manage also. We really ask for your support, and really glad that we feel blessed to be in a community like Fayetteville that provides us such a great place to have a business and raise our families and stuff. So,
question.
Any questions?
Yeah, I just have one question. I was wondering why you went with one of our new form-based codes instead of one of the old conventional codes.
I think the site, with the circulation around it, with all the roads, it seems to lend itself to the form base, and the form base for the type of development and our vision for what we would like to see back there is much more consistent with the form base and the development that allows the neighborhoods to feed down into this area on, create a pedestrian friendly location and not just committed to parking lots and cars and stuff. So the vision we have for this whole place really involves the integration of the trail in the front with the sidewalks and all the neighborhoods surrounding us, and trying to provide the type of businesses that do serve the neighborhood. Some of the setback requirements of the C2 zoning, and specifically, would require us to build these, build all these buildings off the road, and would really limit us more than it would be a benefit to us. So we feel it's just a better fit for the property and for our vision for that area.
Thank you for explaining that.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Nails? Thank you, Dave. Okay. What other public comment do we have on this? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council. Justin.
Well, I would like to thank the Nelms family for being here, not just because I've known them for decades, but also because I fully trust that they're going to make the best use of this land. And in a time where we see car dealerships moving elsewhere, we see an investment in our city by this family and this dealership, and they are reaping the benefits of it. So it's a perfect relationship there. And this side of town, you said woefully lacking, well said, for services, and this is going to be wonderful for the community over there to have the opportunity to have whatever it is that goes in there, because there's nothing there. So thank you to Dennis and David, and I'm glad you're doing well in your business. Continued success, gentlemen.
What other comments do we have? All right, Matthew.
The reason I asked that question is because similar questions have been asked before by several of us when we've seen rezonings in the past, and I wanted to hear from somebody who is actually building something in Fayetteville why they would make that decision. I think it's important to recognize what we heard. When we've seen conventional rezonings in the past, I've always made an effort to go to the property owners and show them that our form-based codes are more flexible, which means it allows the property value to go up more because it's a wider range of uses that are allowed. And I've had some success doing that, but sometimes an owner or an applicant has heard from elsewhere that it's just not going to work for them for whatever reason, even though in most cases all the uses that they would want to do would be allowed in the form-based code I'm recommending. And I want to point out what we heard tonight because we have the head of our economic development team here, and when we see these form-based codes requests come through, it's really important that we realize, and that our team realizes, and that the development community realizes that more often than not, the entitlement process of getting it through council is a lot easier if you use a form-based code, which saves them money, which means that they ought to be more willing to do it once they get around to understanding that. Form-based codes are new for Fayetteville, relatively, a couple of years old, and we did them in the middle of a recession, so I understand why we still have to have this discussion. But I really want to make sure we pay attention to this in the future, and that the development community can learn from this example, because what we heard tonight I think was really well said.
Okay. Al.
Just motion to suspend the rules and go to the second reading.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to go to the second reading. would you please call the roll?
Tenet,
Yes.
Shopmire,
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Long.
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Marsh.
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Petty.
Yes.
An ordinance rezoning the properties described in rezoning petition RZN 13-4363 for approximately 6 acres located at 2269 North Henbest Road from residential agricultural, residential single-family 4 units per acre, and residential multifamily 24 units per acre to community services and thoroughfare commercial.
Move we suspend the rules and go to the third reading.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to go to the third and final reading. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Tenet.
Yes.
Shopmire.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Long.
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Marsh.
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Petty.
Yes.
An ordinance rezoning the properties described in rezoning petition RZN 13-4363 for approximately 6 acres located at 2269 North Henbest Road from residential agricultural, residential single-family 4 units per acre, and residential multifamily 24 units per acre to community services and thoroughfare commercial.
Any final comments from council? Thank you all very much, by the way. Continued success, I agree. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Tenet.
Yes.
Shopmire.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Long.
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Marsh.
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Petty.
Yes.
Okay, number 3, RZN 13-4369, 4253 North Crossover Road, Vista Health. An ordinance rezoning that property described in the zoning petition RZN 13-4369 for approximately 9.58 acres located at 4253 North Crossover Road from RO Residential Office and C1 Neighborhood Commercial to P1 Institutional. Yep.
Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas, Section 1, that the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas hereby changes the zone classification of the following described property from residential office and neighborhood commercial to institutional, as shown on Exhibits A and B attached here to have made a part hereof. Section 2, that the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas hereby amends the official zoning map of the City of Fayetteville to reflect the zoning change provided in Section 1.
Okay. Chairman?
Vista Health is an inpatient mental health facility located off of Crossover Road on the west side of Crossover Road, south of Zion. It's about 10 acres, currently zoned neighborhood commercial and residential office. The property was developed a number of years ago as the Charter Vista Hospital. It's been operating continuously on that property, I think, for almost 30 years. The request is to rezone it from the 2 zip districts to P1 institutional. Staff feels like this is appropriate and will place the hospital in a zoning district that is appropriate for the use of this type. What this does logistically is allows for future expansions or changes in the development of the site to do so without conditional use permits. It's obvious that the uses have been established and it's compatible with the neighborhood, so we feel it should be rezoned to reflect that. The Planning Commission also voted 8-0 to support the rezoning request, and staff is recommending approval.
Okay, what questions do we have for Chairman on this? Okay.
Mayor, this is not really a question, but just a comment.
Sure.
Neither Alderman Chotmeyer or myself have had any negative comments on this particular thing from anybody in our ward.
Good. Any other questions or anything? Okay, any public comment on this?
Hi, I'm Gary Coover with Coover Consultants. I'm the engineer on the project, working with Studio 5 Architects. And just want to let you all know this was a staff recommendation. We were looking at doing a conditional use permit for a small expansion. They said, why is this not institutional? And it was always been a weird mix of residential office and C2, and it's been a hospital for over 30 years. So I just want to be here, let you know I'm here if you have any questions.
Any questions for Gary on this? Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
All right. We're
Move we suspend the rules and go to the second reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to go to the second reading. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Tenet.
Yes.
Shopmire.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Long.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Marsh.
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Petty.
An ordinance rezoning that property described in rezoning petition RZN 13-4369 for approximately 9.5 acres located at 4253 North Crossover Road from residential office and neighborhood commercial to institutional.
Okay.
Move we suspend the rules and go to the third and final reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to go to the third and final reading. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Tenet.
Yes.
Shopmire.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Long.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Marsh.
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Eddie.
An ordinance rezoning that property described in a rezoning petition RZN 13-4369 for approximately 9.5 acres located at 4253 North Crossover Road from residential office and neighborhood commercial to institutional.
Any final comments from the council on this? Okay. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Tenet.
Yes.
Shopmire.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Long.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Marsh.
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Eddie.
All right. Number 4, amend 33.046 and 33.050. An ordinance amending 33.046, providing fire protection services outside the city, and 33.050, response to hazardous materials incidents of the Code of Fayetteville to modify interlocal and mutual aid provisions and to increase rates charged for fire protection, search, rescue, and hazardous materials response services. Kip?
Might want to sit down, Chief. This is a long ordinance.
Yeah.
Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas, Section 1, that the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas hereby amends Section 33.046, providing fire protection services outside the city, so that after the amendment, the section shall read as follows: providing fire protection and search and rescue response services outside the city. The city fire department shall not provide fire protection or search and rescue responses beyond the corporate limits and shall not combat any fire located outside the corporate limits except pursuant to subsection A mutual aid agreement approved by the City Council with another municipal corporation or any duly organized firefighting or search and rescue organization in the United States. Subsection B, the city fire department shall have the right to refuse to respond to any fire or search and rescue located outside the city's corporate limits if, in the judgment of the fire chief or authorized representative, fire protection or search and rescue response within the city would be impaired. Subsection C, rates, reimbursements, collections, and records. Subsection 1, the Fayetteville Fire Department is hereby authorized to bill and collect from recipients of services for all costs incurred by the fire department responding to firefighting or search and rescue incidents, including but not limited to, subsection A, a charge of $400 for the first hour and $200 for each additional hour for each major piece of fire apparatus which responds to the incident. Subsection B, an hourly charge equivalent to the regular hourly pay for each hour that each on-duty employee of the fire department spends in response to and or on the scene of the incident, and the regular time and a half rate of pay for each hour that each off-duty employee of the fire department spends in response to and or on the scene of the incident. C, the replacement costs of all expendable equipment and supplies used by the fire department in managing and mitigating the incident, including any equipment damaged or made unusable by contamination. And D, all costs incurred by the fire department for any labor, materials, or supplies provided by third parties at the request of the Fayetteville Fire Department, including but not limited to any mutual aid agreement, local government entities, business and industrial facilities, specialists, consultants, and utilities, and any other costs necessary to manage and mitigate the incident. Subsection 2, the fire chief or the fire chief's designated representative shall collect charges due the city for the provision of firefighting or search and rescue incident services and shall A, prepare and issue statements for the charges to persons, corporations, partnerships, or any other entities who are providing firefighting or search and rescue services under this section. B, file suit to collect liquid charges due within a reasonable time after the service is provided. And C, maintain adequate records which shall contain the following information: I, date; I, funds collected for services rendered; 3, accounts receivable for unpaid charges; and 5, such other information as may be required by the officials of the city. Section 2, that the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas hereby amend Section 3305, response to hazardous material incidents, so that after amendment the section shall read as follows: Section 33.050, response to hazardous materials incidents. Subsection A, the Fayetteville Fire Department is hereby authorized to respond to hazardous materials incidents within the city, outside the city where contracts for fire protection with city exist, and outside the city upon a call for assistance from another fire department pursuant to an interlocal cooperation agreement for hazardous materials incident response services in Washington County, or any other mutual aid agreement or program requiring a hazardous materials incident response. Subsection B, as used in this section, hazardous materials incident shall mean any incident involving the release, spill, leak, or other undesirable accumulation of any substance for which a material safety data sheet is required under Section 311 of the Emergency Planning Community Right to Know Act of 1986. Subsection C, rates, reimbursements, collection. 1, the Fayetteville Fire Department is hereby authorized to bill and collect from recipients of the services for all costs incurred by the fire department, including responding to a hazardous material incident, including but not limited to a charge of $400 for the first hour and $200 for each additional hour for each major piece of fire apparatus which responds to the incident, an hourly charge equivalent to the regular hourly pay for each hour that each on-duty employee of the fire department spends in response to or on the scene of the incident, and regular time and a half rate of pay for each hour that each off-duty employee of the fire department spends in response to or on the scene of the incident. Subsection C, the replacement cost of all expendable equipment and supplies used by the fire department in managing and mitigating the incident, including any equipment damaged or made unusable by contamination. And D, all costs incurred by the fire department for any labor, materials, or supplies provided by third parties at the request of Fayetteville Fire Department, including but not limited to costs pursuant to the interlocal cooperation agreement for hazardous materials incident response services in Washington County, local government entities, business and industrial facilities, specialists, consultants, and utilities, or any other costs necessary to manage and mitigate the incident. Fire chief or the fire chief's designated representative shall collect charges due the city for the provision of hazardous materials incident services and shall A, prepare and issue statements for the charges to persons, corporations, partnerships, or other entities who are provided hazardous material incident services under this section. B, file suit to collect delinquent charges due within a reasonable time after the service is provided. And C, maintain adequate records which shall contain the following information: date, funds collected for services rendered, accounts receivable, unpaid charges, and such other information as may be required by the officials of the city.
Okay, Chief.
I didn't want to tire you out while you stood there and listened to me, Chief.
Thank you. Mayor, councilors, this ordinance will update the city code with regards to the fire department and line us up with the interlocal cooperation agreement that you all have previously passed with other cities and the county for us to provide hazardous materials emergency responses out in the county and in other jurisdictions. It also will authorize us to provide other services in other jurisdictions with a mutual aid agreement or an automatic aid agreement or under the statewide mutual aid agreement. So it updates the service that we can and authorizes the service that we can provide outside of the city limits, and it updates the cost recovery rates that are in there. So any questions?
Do we have any questions for the chief on this? Okay. What public comment do we have on this? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council.
I move we suspend the rules and go to the second reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to go to the second reading. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Tennant,
Yes.
Shopmire,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Marsh,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Petty.
Yes.
An ordinance amending section 33.046, providing fire protection services outside the city, and section 33.050, response to hazardous material incidents of the Code of Fayetteville, to modify interlocal and mutual aid provisions, and to increase rates charged for fire protection services and rescue and hazardous material response services.
Motion to suspend the rules and move to third and final reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to go to the third and final reading. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Tennant,
Yes.
Shopmire,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Marsh,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Petty.
Yes.
An ordinance amending section 33.046, providing fire protection services outside the city, and section 33.050, response to hazardous material incidents of the Code of Fayetteville, to modify interlocal and mutual aid provisions, and to increase rates charged for fire protection, search and rescue, and hazardous materials response services.
Yes.
I'd just like to say for the public to hear that we learned in our packets and from you, Chief, that the cost of a fire engine was $225,000 and now it was $467,000. So this it's about, I mean, I don't see how you've made it without a change since 1990. And so I just want to say publicly, I appreciate your good work. I was on the trail the other day when there was an accident on the trail. Fire trucks got there quickly, and I saw the professional manner in which our firefighters helped, and great job to our fire department. Appreciate you very much, and thank you for keeping the cost down as long as you possibly could on something like this.
It's been over 20 years, so probably need to raise them a little bit. Any other final comments or anything else? All right. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Tennant.
Yes.
Shopmire.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Long.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Marsh.
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Petty.
Yes.
Okay. Number 5, Old Post Office patio lease. Resolution to approve a 5-year lease of the patio adjoining the old post office to the purchaser of the old post office, Jim Houston.
Mr. Mayor, after the agenda session and after Mr. Houston had received a copy of the proposed lease, we met. He had a few changes, not very many, but a few changes that he wanted to make, and I agreed to present to you all some of those changes, and I did that through my memo of May 31st that was emailed to all of the council members. Those changes were first, in paragraph 5, when it talks about music, he wanted to be allowed to have amplified music on home Razorback football game days, which would be a few Saturdays in the fall, from 2 p.m. until 10 p.m. And so that's one proposal that certainly is up to for your discretion, but that is one thing he asked, and it seemed reasonable to me. Secondly, he wanted to be able to potentially assign this patio lease to any tenant. So he's going to be the building owner. He might manage and run a restaurant there, but he might lease it to another entity to run a restaurant there, and they would, of course, need the patio. And so I placed a provision in there that would allow this assignment right, but I also gave the city council the right that to veto that within 30 days if it was some sort of business that you felt would be not good for the square, not good for the square garden. So he does have a right to assign, but it's subject to the city council looking at it and go, well, you know, not this group. Apart from that, then the other change I made was basically the change of the leasing party. He, I think, is purchasing this property through his limited liability corporation, which is Fayetteville OPO LLC, and wanted the lease to read that. And so I did change that as the leasing entity, and feel like all of these requests made sense. He agreed to all the rest of the terms of the lease, and I know he's here tonight. He has signed that lease, which we provided you a copy of, so that to demonstrate that he is in agreement with all the other terms. And I would invite Mr. Houston to answer any questions or present anything he might want to say to you.
Thank you, Kit. I don't really have anything to add other than what he mentioned that was in the lease that we got originally, and then he and I met and we changed a few little items in there that you know, I don't think it's a big deal one way or the other, but I'm asking, you know, the council to go ahead and approve that. I don't know exactly where we're going with that piece of property. I know 2 or 3 things that we are looking at doing, and either way we go, it's a fit for the square, it's a fit for the patio, and we've got a pretty good track record here in the community of running pretty good businesses, and we're certainly not going to put anything over there that would be a distraction, you know, from the square or from the use of the patio. The music, depending on who we wind up putting in there, you know, it could even be a moot point on that. But we do want to have the options. So if there is something going on, the 2 o'clock, and that's the reason I said to Kit the 2 o'clock, because that wouldn't even interfere with the farmer's market, because they'll basically be over at 2. And anybody that knows Doe's knows we're not a late night joint to start with. Not that we really plan right now of ever moving up here, but you know, we're just trying to cover all of our bases on the front end, so we're not back and forth trying to keep on doing stuff over and over and over. But I'll be glad to answer any questions anybody might have.
What questions do we have, Mr. Houston?
How big is the patio area in question?
12 or 1,400 square feet, something like that.
Maybe a little bigger.
It was in that lease, I thought, but.
Yes, it's 1,676 square
Okay.
feet, but of course, some of that probably is taken up by the walls. They've made fairly, you know, solid columns for the walls, but basically about that size.
I'm just curious because, you know, this request for amplified music, I know we had some concern about that on the farmer's market, and it's one thing when we're doing that for a public festival, but it's another when it's for a private entity. And, you know, we're trying to promote livability in our downtown area, and I question how livable it is downtown when you have this regularly amplified music happening.
Well, regular on 5 or 6 weekends, I wouldn't call that regular. I'd call that, we're glad to have 70,000 people up here having a good time spending money. You know, and it, once again, depends on who's in there. You know, there may not even be amplified music, so, you know, let's don't create a restriction to something that really doesn't need to be restricted at this point. And then, you know, if there's a problem, we can obviously come back to it at that time.
I should note that even if you all agree to allow that, it still has to go to the Planning Commission because outdoor amplified music is a conditional use. So Mr. Houston will have to go to the Planning Commission and they can, you know, look at that and put any conditions on they think, although this is only 8 hours a day, about 5-6 days a year. So it's not like, I don't know if, I doubt if the Planning Commission will be more restrictive than that. They also have to follow our noise ordinance.
Anything, well, Alan and then Adele.
I actually had an email today. Thank you for being here, by the way.
Sure.
I had an email today from a constituent who was concerned about the city leasing out the patio for an entity that would allow smoking. How would you feel about that?
I couldn't understand what you said on the last part.
They were concerned about the city leasing out the patio to an entity who could or could not allow smoking. How would you feel about allowing them smoking on the patio?
Personally, I'm a reformed smoker. I haven't smoked 4 years, and I love them. I'd smoke a half a carton a night if I could. But I don't think you should penalize that building and that patio because there's not another patio in town where you can't smoke. There's not another activity up here on the square where you can't smoke. They can literally sit on the benches that's in your park and smoke. So, you know, once again, I'd rather see the people on the patio smoking to where you can clean it up as to be standing out front smoking and throwing them on the ground. But I don't think it should be restricted, but.
Okay.
What other question?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, Adele, you were next.
I was going to say, we do have decibel levels anyway,
Yes, ma'am, we do.
right?
Sure.
So-
You have to be within the confines of
Sure.
that for sure.
Well, you know, we had a patio at Doe's when we first opened down there, and we never had live music on it in the 2 or 3 years it was operating. So, you know, that's not a big deal one way or the other. It's just, hey, it was an afterthought of let's try to take care of it on the front end, not get bogged down on the back end.
Mark.
I'd like to offer the amendment if we're at that point, because I think it's reasonable.
You can do that just to change the lease to what was presented to you and emailed to you by the city clerk.
I guess my question was, you listed several things. Do you want to do them kind of all at once?
It was amplified music, assigned tenant, and lease changed to their LLC.
So you want to do all?
I would like to
just do them all
include
at
all
one time?
3 of them at
Okay.
once.
I'd second that.
All right.
Thank y'all.
All right, well, let's keep it then within the confines of the amendment then.
Right.
Right now. All right, what discussion do we have? Okay. What public comment do we have on the amendments? Okay. Well, yes, Aubrey, please.
I'm not sure I understood exactly what the amendment was.
Well, amplified music, what was it, Mark? I'm sorry.
There would be amplified music within the the parameters of the city allowed on Razorback game weekends.
Actually, game days.
Game
only
days
Saturdays.
from 2 to 10. Assign the assignability so that they could assign their lease to another tenant, but we would have the right to refuse that assignability if we acted within 30 days, and then the lease would change to their LLC.
Okay, I hear nothing wrong with that. Specifically, so I won't come back up here on the main part. I hope they put in another, or move Doe's there. My first experience with Doe's was in Greenville, Mississippi. The original place, it was just a little house in a rough neighborhood. You went in through the kitchen, and the food was the same as they've got here. It's really hard to tell if they've changed it any by being an offshoot. They brought a good thing up here. So I look forward to whatever they plan to do in there, and this amendment sounds great.
Thank you, Aubrey. Is there anyone else? Okay. Yes, sir.
I'm gonna say, I really can't support the amplified music. You know, on a patio the size of 1,600 square feet, that's a great size for non-amplified live music. I just, you know, if you walk down Dixon Street in the evenings, I tried to go into the Dixon Street bookstore not too long ago, and it was karaoke night at the bar across the street. And even with the door closed in the bookstore, it was unbearable how loud it was. And I think, you know, we do have residences on the square, and we're already, you know, they have to put up with I mean, the farmers market is great, the first Thursday, all the celebrations and festivals up there. But then we're adding this other thing that's for the benefit of a private entity. I think that's a bit much to ask. So I really can't support the amplified music.
Okay. All right. What other comments do we have? Okay. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Tennant.
Yes.
Shopmire.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Long.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Marsh.
No.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Petty.
Yes.
Okay.
So now the resolution that would adopt or authorize this lease is before you.
Question.
Yes, Matthew.
I guess I'm not really certain exactly what space we're talking about. Are we talking about everything that is up the steps on the south side?
No, it's everything within the walled area.
Okay, so you can't even see that from the street.
No, you have to go there and visit it.
Yeah, you have to get in.
But so it's not everything up the steps at all, because a lot of that remains the city's property as our garden area, our square gardens. When the Hog City Diner first wanted to get the patio, they built a fence around the patio, made many improvements to make it from a parking area or loading area into an actual patio that was serviceable for people to sit at, and that's the area we're talking about.
Okay.
It's a fenced-in area, and you've just got about get inside that place to actually see it.
I guess I'm confused why we own it still.
Well, when the Bumpus family purchased the old post office itself, they only purchased the footprint of the building. They had easements on sidewalks going into the building and one easement from East Street that you know about. But all of the land beyond that either was transferred to the city or somehow the city acquired it, and we've owned it ever since. And that's why we built the square gardens and have the fountains and everything else there on that, which is designated as parkland.
Okay, I get that, but the patio itself, that hasn't been used since a restaurant has vacated the building, right?
It's been used, but not much by the city at all. It's really been pretty much vacant. I think in Lights of the Ozark, they've had some ride or
reindeer in there, and
Yeah.
Santa Claus was in there. You could take pictures. Believe
Yeah,
me, I've
yeah.
been there a lot.
Yeah.
So
That is
yeah.
true, Justin.
So too bad for Santa Claus and reindeer, but they're not going to be there
Now I'm
anymore.
taking grandchildren now.
Kit, one other thing too, to
It's
mention
smart.
what you're talking about, there's locked gates on both ends.
Right.
So there's no way for the public to get in or out without coming in or through the building. So it's not a free access.
Right, that's what I was wondering, thank you.
Property.
You know, since the gate is currently on our property, we could open it, but obviously as when it's leased, they have to maintain that. They had to build the fence in order to serve alcohol out there. ABC rules.
Okay.
And we will certainly entertain an offer if anybody has an interest in wanting to sell the patio. We would certainly look at that in part of this deal ourselves too.
We already went down that road, Mr. Houston.
We would not be opposed
Yes,
to
we have.
purchasing that patio.
Thank you. Okay, I
decided to lease it.
had one other legal question, which, don't you have any concern about signing a lease with an entity that doesn't own the building yet?
Oh, I really don't, because it's not going to be usable to them if they don't have the building. I mean, what are they going to do in that area if they don't have access to the building?
You think we just void the lease?
I'm just not concerned. I think that Mr. Huson only wants it because of the building. It would have almost no value to him. In fact, he'd probably be asked to get out of the lease if the purchase of the building fell through. We probably ought to lend him out of it at that point in time. Isn't that right, Mr. Huson? Or you don't?
Yeah, I don't want, the building doesn't go through, which once again.
Well, Mr. Houston, we can't get you on the microphone to get back there, please. Be a nice little park for you.
I have no reason whatsoever to believe that this deal won't go through. Now, we close on it on the morning of the 14th. If you want to redo the lease and date it on the 15th, it doesn't make me any difference. Or I'll just tell you right up front, if we don't get the building, I'll void the lease myself. So I mean, it's whatever you want to do.
Well, in fact, as you see on the lease itself, it says enter this blank day, so
Yeah.
we can just wait until closing if you want to, and then sign it at the same
Yeah,
time.
fill it in on the 15th. That's fine with me.
Okay.
I just need to know, obviously, that it's going to be done, to move forward with what I'm planning to do.
That'd be fine, and as you see, the lease actually commences on July 1st, so
Okay,
as long
yeah.
as it's signed prior to that time, it'll work with the same period we have.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
So I can tell the city council, if you approve this, we probably will not sign this until his closing.
I'll have to sign it, right?
Yeah, you can sign it at his closing.
Well, all right then. I won't sign it until after we close.
Thank you. I appreciate working through that. It looks like this is going to pass, but I wanted to say that I'm not going to vote for the lease, and it's not because I don't have a problem with Mr. Houston using the patio. I think that's right and proper. But I think the lease itself is the wrong way to do it. We haven't used the patio forever. It's always been restaurant use. We should sell it to the building owner if that's what we want to do with it. I think this lease, we're getting too little for too much, and we ought to be getting more, and the best way to do that is to sell it.
I own a piece of house next door to where I live, and I don't like to be a landlord. I'd much rather not have that hassle, but I want to know who my neighbor is. I think it might be important to the city to know and have some control over that area right around the Square Gardens. And so even though I think you're right in that we could receive more money to sell it, you also lose any potential rights you have to restrict outdoor music and to restrict other things that you might not want on that patio. As a landlord, you retain a lot of rights and controls over that you do not have once you've conveyed it.
I appreciate that advice. For me, I trust our noise ordinance implicitly. I think it's a good one. I think it would work here. And I can't envision a scenario where we would ever deny a lease to an active restaurant. So, I think it's a foregone conclusion if there's a restaurant there, this patio is going to be for them. And with that in mind, I think we just ought to do it the right way, in my opinion, and sell it to the building, sell it with the building.
Okay.
The long run, we're getting less than $1 a square foot a year for this. Market rate rents in Fayetteville are $130 to $160 a square foot a month.
Well, the only other thing that I asked you,
Mr. Houston, let's not get into a long debate.
I'm not.
But
You have to be called back before
you have to be called back to the
before
mic.
you can make a comment.
All right. Now, I think some of the things that the last owners that was in there was the Urban
Table.
And they were paying $200 a month, and it was a lease that's always been there. I think some of the points have been interesting, that the Wi-Fi, the hotspot for the square, it rests on top of that building. It is true, and I think you brought up a very good point at the agenda session, that certainly is a benefit for Mr. Houston as well as it is for the city of Fayetteville.
Yeah, his people can use it while they sit there.
But, you know, we took a lot of things into consideration. So what we thought was fair, since it's going to be left in place, the speakers for the A&P is going to be left there as well. And we've been pretty good partners on that. We just thought we would lease it. Now, if the council wishes to not lease it, well, like I said at the agenda session, that was just kind of a stab that I brought to you all to do whatever you wanted to do. And at the end of the day, you all are the landlords of that property. So I will leave it with you. Now, if you would like to call Mr. Houston back up to the microphone and ask him any more questions, I will be fine with that as well. Does anyone like to have Mr. Houston come back? Okay. Yes, Alan.
I'd just like to say that I would really like to see a business succeed there on our square, and I think if this lease helps get that done, I think if providing that patio to a business to help them be successful is what it takes, then that's what I think it is we need to do, and I'll be very supportive of this.
Well, and that's another thing too. We've been trying to develop this square area, and when I first came into office, it wasn't doing so very well. But we have developed businesses up there. We have a new hotel in the area, so that is one of the areas that has really improved in this city. And this is a building where we have a chance to develop a business, and that's why I thought it would be a good idea. So, but you know, Ms. Houston came to me, made an offer, so I'm bringing that to you all, and that's about it. I certainly don't want to discourage any businesses going in the square area. Okay. I'm sorry. Sarah.
Just in response to Matthew's question, or Councilmember Petty's concern, I can think of businesses that I would not let on the square, such as a gentleman's club. So I think that it is appropriate that we have some control over our square. But further, I've also received comments from constituents requesting that patio be smoke-free. And I know that you can still smoke just outside the patio on the public property, but I think from a worker safety perspective, having worked in a restaurant with a smoking area when I was in college, and 10 years later I still have respiratory issues as a result of that, I think it's our responsibility to protect the health and safety of workers that work on city property. And it would also be a nice amenity to have a smoke-free patio in our downtown area. I know I like to dine outside a lot and don't like to use cigarette smoke, so I think that is actually a value add instead of a value take away. So I'm proposing that we require that patio to be smoke-free.
So you're making an amendment?
Yes.
Second.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
If they serve food on the patio, can they allow smoking?
Yes, our smoking ordinance, we are preempted by state law for any outdoor air pollution. That's why our smoking ordinance relates only to indoor areas. So that's why any restaurant or bar, whichever, that has a patio area would be allowed by state law to allow smoking. As a landlord, we would have the right to have a different resolution. You have the power as the city council to say, as landlords, we're not going to allow smoking there. We have not done that in the past. It doesn't mean you can't do it in this lease.
Okay. Well, now, Mr. Houston, since we are bringing up an amendment, you may speak at the microphone if you wish.
Well, I think we're just going over the same old thing, but I can't understand why somebody that's trying to bring life back to a 3-year-old dead horse that's been laying out here doing nothing, that you would want to put any undue restrictions on 1,600 square feet that has to be gone through the building to get to that may not actually even wind up being a restaurant. When you can do it on every other activity on the square, that allows children and everybody else, and you know, I don't see the equality in that. I really don't. And
Okay, Mark.
My concern with this is that it would push the smokers out to the benches around the square, and then it would become our problem to clean up the butts and have to deal with the public nuisance. And I think that that is a real possibility, and that's my biggest concern about having a restriction such as this.
I have a question. On the Dixon Street area, we have patios down there. No, we allow smoking on those patios.
We cannot not allow. We do not have the power to regulate outdoor air pollution.
Because
so
they're privately
our
owned
smoking ordinance
property.
cannot do that. We can only do it as a landlord, because that we're getting our power not from state law, but because we own the property.
I see. Justin?
I would, one, I would agree with Alderman Kenyon, what he just said. I hadn't really thought of that until he said it, but I think that's a restriction that, although I understand it and I'm a non-smoker, I would also say that it is my opinion that any business, any restaurant, let's say it's a restaurant, that goes in there and allows smoking on their patio or anywhere in their restaurant, as many of the restaurants in Fayetteville have gone non-smoking. Many of the bars have gone non-smoking. It was their choice to do that because the market demanded that. And I would suggest that a restaurant won't last very long down there that allows smoking on that patio. If I was putting in a restaurant, I would not allow smoking at all. I would say it's a non-smoking establishment. Simple as that, because I think more and more people will come there if it is smoke-free. I might be totally surprised, because I plan to go there, if there's a lot of people out there smoking, but I will be shocked if they are, because I don't think that will be successful to the business model. It seems to not be successful in this city. The places that I see a lot of smoking have nothing to do with a restaurant. And I don't know too many restaurants that allow smoking even on their patios, because they found that the market dictates it. And I think we should let the market have a little bit of say here, as opposed to us putting a bunch of restrictions on what I think is going to be a good help to the square.
Okay.
Yes, Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
I certainly agree. Of course, as we all know, I'm very anti-smoking, but I do not, I think when you're outside like this, it's entirely different. And I agree, we don't want to put restrictions on this dead horse. So I'm very happy to see that you are willing to take a chance with it, Mr. Houston, and want to do everything we can to encourage it.
thank you. And we're going to make a nice place on the square. Like I say, I can't divulge all the details right now because they're still in some of the formative stages, but it's going to be something really special.
Okay. Any other discussion on the amendment? Yes.
A study at Stanford a couple of years ago looked at the pollution associated with being in close proximity within 18 inches of an outdoor smoker. Found that, let's see, where's the quote I'm looking at? If you are at a sidewalk cafe and you sit within 18 inches of a person who smokes 2 cigarettes over the course of an hour, your exposure to secondhand smoke could be the same as if you sat 1 hour inside a tavern with smokers because of how close you were sitting. And I get the arguments, but I don't think the fact that people can smoke on the square is a reason that we should let more people smoke in a different place on the square. I think it's a reason that we should end smoking on the square.
Okay. Is there any other public comment on this? I'm sorry. Okay. I'll bring it back to the council. All right, we have the amendment before us. Yes, Ron.
I'd probably vote for the no smoking on the patio if we also go back and look at the farmer's market again and say no smoking at the farmer's market either.
We
You want to bring that, I mean, that's the only way if we're landlords of a lot of property, and when we brought the whole smoking thing up before, I almost voted against it. I didn't, I voted for it, but I didn't think it reached far enough. We let people smoke on the swing sets in our public parks, blowing smoke right in the child's face that they're pushing on a swing. And so I will not vote to not allow a business to do what they can within the laws if we're just gonna not do something about the other property that we've spent weeks and weeks debating. I think it goes hand in hand.
Any other final comments? All right, on the amendment now. All right, there's not any other comments. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Tennant.
No.
Shopmire.
No.
Adams.
No.
Long.
No.
Gray.
No.
Marsh.
Yes.
Kenyon.
No.
Petty.
No.
Okay.
Yes.
No.
Sorry.
Confused
there.
It's all right.
Not a yes.
All right, now we have the amended lease.
And the resolution to pass it.
Yes,
as amended.
I need a motion and a second to either.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second to pass the resolution. Okay, everybody good? All right. Any final comments on that? All right, Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Tennant.
Yes.
Shopmire.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Long.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Marsh.
No.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Petty.
No.
Okay. Oh. All right. Number 6, industrial park land sale. Resolution to request that the administration negotiate a land sale agreement to convey about 14.9 acres to a bioscience company planning to build a facility in the industrial park.
And pursuant to the code section on the sale of city property, this is going to be a public hearing on that, and I think that, Jeremy, you've given the proper notices as required by the ordinance.
That's correct.
So the first thing we do, we start with public hearing.
Or you can have a presentation if you want to.
Well, I will. David, so you start it off.
David Jurgens, Utilities Director. A number of months ago, a company that called the Pacific Vets Group approached folks in the states of Oklahoma, Missouri, and Arkansas wanting to find a location in this region to expand their facility. They narrowed that down through working through the Fayetteville Chamber of Commerce and the State Economic Development Commission to approximately 15-acre site that is located in the industrial park on Morningside Drive or City Lake Road, because the name of the road changes right in that area. They've brought forward a proposed agreement that has gone forward through the state, through our chamber, and then coming forward to you all to occupy that 14.9 acre site. We would sell it to them for $223,500, that being a rate of $15,000 per acre. The city is contributing a reduced rate for that of $5,000 below the standard rate of $20,000 per acre that we've sold industrial park land for in the past. AEDC and the chamber worked very hard on this thing and came up with a proposal. The city also, as our portion of a contribution to AEDC to encourage this business, would do some work up to $200,000 on public rights of way or easements with roadside work, curb and gutter, drainage, sidewalks, and possibly installing a water line across and an easement across the property as well if required. Our city code does have specific requirements, including, of course, the public hearing, public notice in the newspaper, and also a statement from the city council in the resolution stating that this land is no longer required for public use. And all of those requirements will be met as of tonight when we have this public hearing. We do have representatives from the chamber here in case you have any questions for them, and representatives from Pacific Veterans Group, or correction, Pacific Vets Group as well, if you have any questions for them.
Okay, you have any questions for David? Okay.
I've got a couple questions for him. On our code, there's a couple things that the city council must find. One is whether or not this property is properly zoned or should be rezoned prior to any sale.
Okay, and this land is zoned industrial, which is appropriate for this site. This was actually, it is developed as a development for industrial use.
And the second one is whether or not we don't actually need this property for corporate purposes at this time.
And that is correct. We do not need this property for corporate purposes.
Because in fact, this was bought in order to be sold for industrial uses. But anyway, that's part of what your code says. I just want to get that in the record.
And the reason the water and sewer utility owns this land is that there was a land transaction several years ago when we moved from the Cato Springs Road site into the industrial park, and that's why it is water and sewer property. It was kind of a balance sheet issue.
Okay, thank you, Kit, very much for that. Mr. Clark, would you like to address us tonight?
Mayor, just want to make one quick comment. Just to be clear, the funds from this land sale go to the water and sewer fund.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm Steve Clark, the president of the Fayetteville Chamber. We strongly support this proposal for the reason that these are homegrown jobs developed by homegrown people. These are jobs that require high-tech skills in the sense that those to be employed in these jobs are going to earn in excess of $60,000 annually. This is a company that started with ideas and innovation that started at our university, grew with some out-of-state investors, looked at sites in other states, Missouri and Oklahoma in particular, wanted to stay here. We worked hard to make sure they could have the opportunity to stay here and grow here. Eventually this will become a business of 65 or 70 employees. It's international in scope today. It will continue to be international in scope as well as national. And it represents the very best of what we want to have from our perspective in our new commerce district. And it represents the very best when we talk about part of the future of Fayetteville being innovation. These are probiotics. These are food supplements that are primarily used with poultry. But the intellectual property that they're developing and the techniques that they're developing have potential to go even further than that. And this is a really extraordinary company, and so we hope that you will be very much in support of this and make such a statement there too. We have obtained the support of the state in helping us in this effort, and so it is a joint effort between the city of Fayetteville, the state of Arkansas, and these investors and these innovators as we develop this for long-term business in the city of Fayetteville.
Do we have any questions, Mr. Clark? Okay, thank you, Steve. Who else would like to address us on this?
You guys all have computers now. You can look at this stuff. And I wish we had a lot of people here from the public to comment on all these things. I get tired trying to do the homework. But this is an area that's right now utilized by bird watchers, equestrians, horse riding, and wildflower photography and so forth. And just looking what I can see on the plan here, they've got landscape this and that, and a lot of pavement, and I hope that's a great industry and it's useful. I think a lot of us have talked about getting by not allowing the use of any antibiotics in any of our food, but it sounds like that may be what they, if I understood it, part of their purpose, or maybe their main purpose and function. But anyway, part of this land ought to be set aside, just as we've talked about in the parks trying to do, and not, since we own it right now, leave some of the natural part of it and ask them to landscape, not put in red dirt and put turf on top and pretend that that's green space, because it's not functional green space. Keep the natural soil everywhere they can, and when they say landscape, encourage native plants on it. Just leave that natural soil and mow it once in the winter and leave it alone in the summer, and have something that we can be proud of here, and catch more water on the property. There's going to be a lot of runoff when you do this much covering of this site. So these are things the city can control in the place we're selling. Today or yesterday, I got a call early in the morning and was invited to come look at a site. And I was told by the caller that, who lives, sounds like pretty close to it, that, well, there are no signs saying that land had even been approved for any kind of earth moving or anything. And it turns out that was the case. And I still haven't had a chance to talk with the city engineers and stuff about what exactly will occur, because this is over in, off Lewis Road, between Lewis Road and the university there. And it's a big wooded area equivalent to 2 or 3 blocks. And it's got a big old, from post to post, strip taken through those woods. And all they're doing, from the explanation I did hear from people that were associated with it, not the owners, because the owners haven't sold it yet. It's one of those things. But in that case, they're way out ahead of the city by going in there and bulldozing a lot of trees that would qualify for protection and would limit to some degree any large-scale development the way it was handled. But this thing we're talking about here that the city owns, it could have some restrictions on the actual content. I know that'll come up to the planning commission before it is actually created. The plan that's here is not necessarily final. But anyway, I keep asking that we look at all those areas of concern, because we've got a tree ordinance. The one I'm talking about that was violated in the last week or two over there in that direction. It also has hillside, steep area that's work's being done on. And all those big trees are laid out. Tree protection, streamside protection. There are 3 identifiable streams run through that wooded area across that strip that's been bulldozed. So, you know, there's just not enough inspectors, and people like the person who called me yesterday morning while I was on my first cup of coffee. But I got over there and started checking it out, and I talked to people who lived around that place. We've got to try to enforce all of those rules. It's a package: wildlife habitat, watershed protection, and trees themselves. And all those things go together, and it's about climate action. You know, there's nothing we can do to save our planet by artificially just reduce our light use. Okay, that'll help. Everything we can do to stop wasting resources. But protecting trees and keeping the natural vegetation in place, and good soil that people can grow food on, as well as beautiful things. That's something that doesn't cost anything, really, except good intentions. Thank you.
Thank you, Aubrey. Who else would like to comment on this?
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Chadbourne McKee, and I live directly across. If you look, I can point to it for you. Yes, I live on the pointer. I've been there for 36 years. I like it. I've led a charmed life. I've been able to ride horses and have a lot of really nice things there because I have 22 acres of my own. I'm not opposed to the kind of industry that I believe this is, so I want to be clear about that. I just want to ask some questions, which I know that they don't have to all be answered this evening. I can find that out from the city planners and from the company when we talk further. But I do want to ask you to keep some things in mind. One thing you all may not know, the St. Paul Trail is an equestrian trail. It is Fayetteville's only equestrian trail. It was named that by Marion Orton, who perhaps Kit is the only one old enough in the room to remember. But when she was mayor of the city, she did get those trails designated as equestrian trails. There's not a lot of equestrian activity in the city because, or in the country now, because so much land is being taken away from horses and they can't go there and ride. Now, I want to be clear that this is a personal operation that I run. It's not my livelihood, but I do rent land from the city. I rent this pasture. I'm the one that mows it. I mow approximately a total of 80 acres. That's a lot of mowing. So I've saved the city a lot of money in addition. I also mowed the St. Paul Equestrian Trail with my own brush hog and my own diesel, because the city does not, in fact, get it mowed as wide as it was agreed that it should be mowed. It's hard to, because the banks drop off on that trail, so the horses go on the banks instead. Now, over the years, it's been a lot of different horse people, mostly children, the Boston Mountain Pony Club, sometimes the Northwest Arkansas Riding Club, which some of you will remember, and had an arena over near the university's Whitaker Arena. So a lot of that is gone now because there's not a lot of land. So I'm concerned about this being, how it'll affect the value of my property, which is, of course, residential property. The house is 1916. It was pretty rotten. I've put a lot of money into trying to save it. I have a beautiful barn built in the old style. It's called a gambrel roof. So I'm concerned that there are other residences. I am zoned agricultural. I always have been, so what I do there is legitimate, and it's not my livelihood. But I hope that you'll think about the green space and the landscaping. That land is actually quite marshy. You wouldn't realize that, but, and you can't see it on this type of map, but it does run off into the area, which I guess I could show you with that pointer. There's quite a low, yes, between those two tree lines there, to your left and up. I grab that.
Absolutely, yes, ma'am.
Right here is very low. I do mow all of this. I mow all of this. So that's why it isn't grown up in Asian honeysuckle, which I am particularly distasteful. I hate that stuff. It does crowd out the native species, in case you hadn't noticed that. It took me a while to notice. Okay, so what I really want to ask is that this be a clean industry. I'm concerned about the traffic. I'm concerned about the safety for the children. I'm concerned about the equestrian trail, which it isn't even labeled, but the trail people actually know that, but I think they forget it. I'm concerned about my own property value, of course. I'm concerned about how much land will be paved. I'm concerned about the lighting, any odors, which I don't think there would be from this factory, but I would like to hear more about this. And I know they are getting it at a reduced rate, which is probably a good thing in order to encourage this type of industry. To let you know that the land that is in this area, most of it is owned by the city inside the city limits, but it's very beautiful land, and we do have the opportunity to possibly maintain some of the growth and the greenery. In general, the horses have to stay off of privately owned land because nobody wants the liability anymore. But presumably, we could ride in the adjacent areas, and if it is designed correctly, I hope that you can consider that and maintain some of it. I also hope you'll keep the traffic slow on that street. The police have been very good about occasionally coming down there and trying to slow it down because there is a little bit of mischief in this south part of town. It is the only part of Fayetteville that is really still green. Everything else north of us, all the farms are gone. So I think that covers it. Do you have any questions for me?
Any questions, Mr. McKee?
What else would you like to know about this beautiful place?
Okay.
It's worth walking, it's worth taking your dog down there, and it's worth bringing in some more horses. Fayetteville needs a little bit of an extension of the riding area, so I'm hoping that maybe Parks and Recreation will look at this a little bit.
Okay. Thank you. Who else? Okay. I'm going to bring that.
I have a
Sure.
question. Jeremy, when you look at the St. Paul Trail here, it's still going to be owned by the city. We're not selling the trail, so it still would be utilized as an equestrian trail as it was initially established?
I'm not familiar, honestly, with where the equestrian trail, the route is. Obviously, the named St. Paul Trail is our multi-use trail, so it may be alongside that particular trail. That's about a little under a mile in length, but that's correct. That's not being sold. That's maintained. That was one of our rails to trails projects that we constructed several
that went
years
to
ago.
St. Paul, I know.
But yes, that is staying in the city's ownership, and it's showing on the map as the trail there to the north.
I hope that we can maintain that as an equestrian trail. I can see the value in that, of having that type of diversity, especially as we're approaching the city limits on the south side there. So it was nice to hear that.
What else?
Is a company representative here?
Yes. Come on up, please. Good evening.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Chris Pixley. I work for Pacific Bay Group. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you all might have. And thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening.
Well, I'm really excited about this coming to our what are we calling it, a commerce district, but I also think that the neighbor had some really good points. And I see on your plan you've indicated areas for a bioswale and landscape road frontage. Could you elaborate a little bit on how you intend to landscape the site and mitigate water, and if there are any sustainable practices that you will incorporate?
Sure. Yeah. The plan that you see is essentially it's a prototypic plan of what could be occurring on the property. It is not a final plan, and by no means is that exactly what's going to be there. I think our corporate ethic essentially is to maintain as natural as possible the existing trees and the existing landscape. There's going to be, of course, areas where that's not possible, or maybe not even favorable. So old fence rows with cedar trees and those type of things would probably not be something that we would want to maintain, but large mature trees. There's several, I'm not sure exact percentages, but there's more than 1 or 2% of that property that is in the floodplain. And so we probably would not do anything with those areas, and really try to design around the existing landscape that's there, and then make minimal modifications. So tentatively speaking, that's the thought process, but specific details are a little hard to come by. You know, we haven't designed the buildings and we don't know the exact layout, but the essence of what we're trying to do, I think, is maintain the natural beauty that's there, and kind of work around it when we can.
And your site plan does reflect a pretty good compatibility with the existing landscape in terms of where you've massed the buildings, and I see that the areas of preservation, the bioswale is actually indicated just where the neighbor showed the marshy area. So I just hope that you'll keep that in mind as you proceed with this project.
Absolutely.
I know, Sarah, when I looked at those very same plans, I asked a lot of the same questions, and they talked about the bioswales going around and then preserving a lot of the marshy land in that area. Now, this is sort of a concept plan. They don't have anything finally drawn out. That's got to go through the large-scale development and be approved by the Planning Commission, I assume. And that's correct.
I think it's important to note that while we're looking today at the contract of the land sale, many of the items, lighting, runoff management, buffer, landscaping, are all items that are part of the development review process that staff would be very heavily involved in terms of making sure that we address those areas. I will say that one of the things, the reason that our contractors, the Chamber, AEDC, and even your staff are recommending a company that's standing before you today is because we spent a lot of time trying to outline what types of companies we wanted in Fayetteville, so that we didn't end up with the old bakery feed discussions and smoke tower or smokestack discussions. So we have a very clear, articulated desire of the kind of businesses we want, and we believe that this company meets that. It's probably why you see some of that in the concept plan, because the companies that we're going after to recruit are ones that have that philosophy.
And go ahead.
I too appreciated the plan and the thoroughness of our staff and our economic development team. I had one specific request. When we heard the comment earlier, one thing that was said was that this is one of the few green areas left in town, and I too have experienced that just driving down the road. And I was wondering if you would agree tonight through the development process with our staff to plant trees next to the road frontage between your parking or in the street or between the sidewalk and the street, so that we could maintain that sense.
Absolutely. I think where practical and how it fits, how it's able to be implemented into the plan, we will strive to do that. Now, that being said, I am not personally able to commit to that right now.
I should note that the resolution before the City Council is the request for the administration to negotiate a land sale agreement. So the land sale agreement is actually not before you. I think this is good comments about what you might like to see in the land sale agreement, but I don't think it's appropriate to try to get the applicant to commit to anything. They want to see an actual land sale agreement, and this is to authorize the administration to do that.
To work on.
Understood, and that's precisely why I'm making my comment, is just to establish in principle that that's something we'd like to do and to indicate to staff that it's something that I think is important.
That's fine. Right now, what I'm wanting to know is to really see if y'all are interested in seeing that parcel land to develop this. We talk a lot about green jobs and green technology and bringing in good paying jobs, and this is what we believe is green technology. We believe that it's those green collar jobs we have always talked about, and they pay $60,000, 65 jobs at $60,000. The state's going to invest. We've worked with the state, worked with the Chamber of Commerce, and we don't have everything buttoned down, but I wanted to bring it to you all to see if you had an interest in at least selling the land and exploring it, because that industrial park, that was exactly what it was. This is what it was intended to do, was to develop, the industrial end of this city. And this is very clean and green, and we would hope that you would support it and let it run through the process. And we'll be looking, to go through the planning commission. They'll bring it back here. You get to look at it. And
well, of course, we're going to bring the land sale agreement to them. That'll have all the
terms.
That's
going to be within 2 weeks. So
I will remind the council that this was a competitive economic development offer in which there was a decision by the company to choose between a state of Missouri location or a state of Arkansas location.
Oklahoma, I think, was involved.
And so the reason that they stand before you today is that in order to really accept the package from the state, the property of which the business to be built on is a critical component of that. And without being able to get to an agreement, then we would need to let the company know that so they could pursue their development. So we believe it's a great fit. You've given us great feedback in terms of the contract design. And the reason we don't have a contract in front of you is we didn't want to bring something without having had some of this insight, because obviously they're getting ready to make a significant capital investment in our community. And this is in line with our job, like I said, our job and industry growth targets.
And it's a local business. It's a homegrown business. So, okay. Alan.
I'd like to make a motion to pass the resolution.
Second.
All right.
You're fast, sir.
All right. Everybody good? Yep. Okay. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Tennant.
Yes.
Shotmar.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Long.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Marsh.
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Petty.
Yes.
I want to thank Mr. Clark for his efforts in this, and Kit Williams, staff. I want to thank you, council. I think this is a significant investment in this city. Thank you all very much. All right. The last item we have tonight before you is the City Council budget adjustment, a resolution approving a budget adjustment in the total amount of $10,200 to provide additional travel and training funding for members of the City Council. This is something that I brought forward that I've thought about for a while. There's situations where I have a travel and expense account, and I know that every year when we go to Municipal League, if you go 2 times a year, that costs about $2,000. And what I propose tonight for you, and you can decide if you want to pass it or not, is that each alderman will have $2,000 for travel and expenses in the course of the year, and you will manage that. If you spend over that $2,000, you have to bring it back here before the council and get approved for them if you get any more money. And you can't carry the $2,000 over or pool it, or it's travel and expense for you all, and we're going to work it into the budget. So with that, it's pretty straightforward, and I'll leave it with you.
I just might add the comment that we think it's important, not only for staff, but for elected officials to be knowledgeable in the things you're making decisions on. There are certainly things that we have done historically, Arkansas Municipal League, but there's also educational opportunities that would be beneficial if you so chose to see those as we make decisions about solid waste collection methodology, economic development, new ordinances on waste diversion, many things. And we also think that you have an idea of where you would like to be educated to be able to make and be a better decision maker. So it's why, rather than having Sandra do it and then have to adjust her budget based on someone's request, this gives a flat amount each year for you all to go through the process.
Okay.
Mayor,
yes,
I want to say that I appreciate this so very much, because when I'm at Municipal League, I have heard, I've visited with several folks who've said, can't do this, not sure if we'll be at the next meeting, no money. So I appreciate this very much.
I thought it was important for, if you want to go to Municipal League, or if you want to go to conferences that will make you more well-rounded, because you all are policy makers just like I am, and we want to make that type of investment. So I guess, but it's ultimately up to you. So
I think it's a good investment. You all are running one of the largest cities in Arkansas, one of the most progressive cities in Arkansas. I think it really helps to get out and go to the Municipal League or go to other conferences where you can talk to your peers, other experts, and come back with good ideas, not too many at one time.
Yeah, not too many at a time. All right. Do we have any public comment on this? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council.
I move to pass a resolution.
Second. We have a motion and a second to pass the resolution. Any final comments? Okay. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Tenet?
Yes.
Shopmire?
Yes.
Adams? Yes. Long?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Marsh?
Yes.
Kenyon?
Yes.
Petty?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, council. All right. What announcements do we have?
Council, mayor, and citizens, first we want to welcome all of the Walmart shareholders and vendors to our community here in Fayetteville. Spend your money. We hope you have a good visit here and experience all of Northwest Arkansas and specifically Fayetteville. Our Wilson Park Pool opens this Friday. It's free admission beginning at 4 p.m. We also have the ribbon cutting and opening of our new youth tennis courts at 5:30 p.m. in Wilson Park as well. And then to cap the evening as the skies darken, we will have our dive-in movie, Madagascar 3. Again, admission is free for those events. The Wheeler Brothers Gully Park concert, which was canceled due to severe weather last Thursday, has been rescheduled for July the 18th. So we hope you'll mark your calendars. They're a group out of Austin, Texas. We're looking forward to having them in our community, just on a different date. Of course, our next concert for the Gully Park Concert Series is the Sarah Hughes Band, and that's on June the 13th. we hope you'll bring your families and have fun with the community at that event. Just for those watching in East Fayetteville that live on Fox Hunter Road, we did have a change in a previously planned street closure for some right-of-way work. It's been rescheduled for this coming Tuesday, June the 11th, between 8 a.m. and 12 noon, so you'll need to make plans to find a different route than Fox Hunter between Churchill Drive and Hunter Drive. That's where we'll be doing some right-of-way management, and we apologize for the change, but we had some unforeseen priority work around severe storm and drainage issues. The Historic and Heritage Resource Action Group of Fayetteville Forward is meeting tomorrow, June the 5th, at the Clinton House Museum. That's 930 Clinton Drive, and it's at 5 p.m. There's also the, on the 6th of June, which is, I guess that would be Thursday, the Fayetteville Forward Green Economy Group will be meeting in the Fayetteville Chamber of Commerce at 4 p.m. The Town and Gown Advisory Subcommittee Group B, which is the group on safety, which will be discussing our trail safety, our response safety, and our boundaries for where the university police respond, where the city responds in terms of preventative coverage. We'll also be on the 6th. That's at 3:30 at Fire Station 1 in their conference room. And Partners for Better Housing meets in room 111 at 6 p.m. also on the 6th. So lots of public meetings coming up, and hope to see you at the pool on Friday.
What other announcements do we have tonight? Anything? All right. Really good work, y'all. Appreciate it very much. All right. We're adjourned.